While I was working on a recent video, I had YouTube on as background noise. I was playing the YouTube autoplay lottery when a true crime video came on about different cases that had shocking and strange evidence. I was half paying attention when one of the stories piqued my interest. Okay, have you heard about this? The story was about a woman, Glenna Duram, who murdered her husband, Martin Durham, while his parrot, Bud, watched the entire incident. Bud, traumatized by what he observed, would parrot the conversation that happened during the tragic event. Since Bud was in fact a witness, the prosecutors were trying to figure out how they were going to submit this parrot into evidence, if they could even do that. Would they make the parrot testify? Was it even legal to have an animal on the stand? The video I was watching featured this low quality footage from like a local news broadcast that actually showed Bud repeating what he had seen that I want to show you. I'm going to be presenting it to you in the way that it was in the video, but I'm going to be adding subtitles so it's easier to understand Bud. Personally, I find this interesting, but I could easily see how this could be upsetting to some. Bud is literally parroting Martin's final words, including his vocal tonality. So, if you feel like you want to skip this, go ahead and jump to this timestamp on screen.
No! 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 Get your ass over it now! Now! No! No shit!
Isn't that incredible? Parrots really are awesome animals. Bud is an African gray parrot, which are among the most intelligent of parrots. They can not only learn to mimic their human partners more quickly than other parrots, but they can also match the tone and inflection in some cases, just like this one. You might have heard that I'm a bit of a gamer, and yeah, it's true. So besides the obvious reason that this story grabbed my attention, it actually reminded me of something that happened in one of my favorite game series, Ace Attorney. Ace Attorney is a lawyer sim / visual novel by Capcom, where you play as defense attorney Phoenix Wright, as well as several others, in your quest to help innocent clients navigate the futuristic legal system where trials only last 3 days and lawyers can investigate crime scenes to gather evidence in hopes to land a not guilty verdict. It started out as a video game series on the Game Boy Advance in Japan, and went on to have an international release on the Nintendo DS. It also includes a bunch of sequels, an animated show, a manga, spin-offs, as well as a live-action movie that was pretty solid from what I remember. This series has been around for quite a while. It actually celebrated its 20th anniversary a couple of years ago, which made my skin crawl. Where's the time gone? I would say that Ace Attorney is known for 3 things. Number 1 is objection! Number 2 is that cheeseburgers and ramen are the same thing. And number 3 is that it has some really weird cases that take dramatic turns and have improbable twist endings. And we're going to be focusing on number 3 today. Each Ace Attorney game is divided up into chapters that focus on one centralized case that the main character is working on. There will be some mild spoilers, but I'm opting to keep details as vague as I can because I think you should actually check out Ace Attorney, even if it's only like the first case in the first game. I'm not actually a huge fan of visual novels, but Ace Attorney hits differently, so please play them if you haven't yet. In the penultimate case in the first game, while investigating a crime scene, Phoenix is having a hard time getting some answers out of a possible suspect, and the suspect happens to have a parrot in his house. The suspect ends up departing the crime scene, leaving Phoenix alone with the parrot, named Polly. Polly had overheard her owner committing a crime and parrots important details to him, including information pertaining to a murder. Phoenix, realizing how important Polly is to the case, is like, hey, we gotta get this bird to testify so I can cross-examine it in front of the judge. And then, he actually does it. and it leads to what a lot of people consider to be the first standout wacky moment in a series full of wacky moments. Sounds kind of familiar, right? Now, like I mentioned earlier, I was only half paying attention to this video that sparked this core Ace Attorney memory in my head while I was watching it. And I only started concentrating towards the end. Like, I didn't even catch the name of the channel or anyone involved in the incident on my first viewing. I decided I would just look it up later since I was busy editing. After I was done, I went to check my watch history so I could view the video again, and guess what? YouTube didn't record my history for any video I was watching on autoplay. Maybe I was accidentally logged out while viewing it, or maybe I was under the wrong account or something, I don't know. Either way, it was pretty frustrating because I was actually intrigued by the story and I wanted to learn more about it. So I hopped on the Ace Attorney wiki to look up Polly the Parrot, just to reread about this chapter from the game, and maybe hoping the trivia section would have more details about the IRL situation. Like maybe names or an article where I could read more about it, since I assumed this is the real-life court case the Ace Attorney case was based on, since they had loosely based other cases in the games on real-world events before. Let me tell you how surprised I was when it had absolutely nothing, no information at all, not even a reference to this. So I flipped the switch in my brain from gamer mode to research mode and decided to take to Google to search Parrot witnesses murder, and what I found shocked me. Glenna Duram, the murderer in the real-world incident, committed her heinous crime in 2015. The first Ace Attorney game came out in 2001. This case happened almost 15 years after the release of Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. What a coincidence, right? The story from Ace Attorney had absolutely nothing to do with the real deal. I had been talking to a friend about the first Ace Attorney game recently, like literally a few days before I saw this video, and I think it made me nostalgic for the earlier games, so I already had them on my mind. Also, that low quality footage of Bud the news showed, it was vertical cell phone footage they had cropped and zoomed in on, which duped me into thinking this was much older than it was, since it was blurry and kinda looks like it was filmed on VHS. All of these pieces sort of fell into place that led me to subconsciously tricking myself into thinking that the writers at Capcom had used this case as a base for their case, instead of this being a gigantic coincidence. To say my mind was blown would be an understatement. Earlier I mentioned that Ace Attorney came out in 2001, but the game actually takes place about 15 years in the future of when the game came out. The fictional case takes place in December of 2016, which is also when Glenna's trial took place. Just to see if there were any further concurrences, I also rewatched the episode of the animated show about this case.
What's her problem?
So, the Ace Attorney anime is a pretty faithful retelling of in-game events, including Polly's representation and assistance she serves during the trial. So, there wasn't really any new information that was presented. But if you want to experience the stories of Ace Attorney, the anime is a great way to do that, and it's a pretty good recap of this entire case if you don't feel like playing through the game again. Interestingly though, I did rewatch this cases section from the live-action Ace Attorney movie, and Polly is an entirely different breed of parrot. She's a yellow-crested cockatoo, which looks more similar to Bud. Also, if you're a fan of Ace Attorney and you haven't seen the live-action movie, give it a watch. You're missing out on a fun time. I also went ahead and watched some more videos and read a few articles about the Durham case, and there were actually even more coincidences in both. So, you should also check out the articles in the description of this video that go into further detail about both the fictional and the non-fictional case. Since this is a true crime story, there are some sensitive issues that I'm not fully comfortable discussing in this video, so I'm going to be leaving them out. Research them at your own discretion. If you want to find the further similarities between these two, grab your Magatama and channel the spirit of Dick Gumshoe and do some of your own detective work. Glenna was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in 2017 for her crimes, and good, she deserves it. She was buried in gambling debts, and killing her husband was her selfish solution to a problem she created herself. Bud was fortunate enough to find a new home. His new owner is Christina Keller, who is actually the ex-wife of Martin Durham, Bud's original owner. Hell yeah! I'm glad she was willing to take him in. She actually championed Bud as a witness to the crime and was very persistent that the prosecution should use him as evidence, even though it sounds like they ultimately didn't. Regardless, I am awarding Bud an honorary bravery award for his service. He really is a hero of mine. Something I learned about the very intelligent African gray parrot is that they actually show signs of concern for others, and they can perform at the cognitive level of a 4 to 6-year-old human child. When Bud was repeating what he had heard from that night, he was probably traumatized, and he was trying to cope with the horrible situation that he had witnessed. Christina puts it best in the interview she gave to Inside Edition.
When Bud says those words, I feel like it's being relived in front of me. My house goes cold. I felt it. I literally felt what the bird was going through.
He was a witness to his friend Martin being in pain, and it stuck with him. The bond between humans and animals can be really special, and we truly are lucky to be surrounded by such amazing creatures that we call companions on this little planet that we call home. If for some reason Christina ever sees this video, I'd love to know how Bud is doing, or if anyone could update me on that matter, it would be really appreciated. This whole thing is obviously a huge coincidence, and the situation I was in when learning about it made the whole thing even weirder, which is why I wanted to share this story in a video. Part of the reason why this blew my mind is the central theme being about parrots, which are known to mimic human speech. It was like the real-world case was mimicking the fictional one. Life parroted art. Thank you so much for watching. This video was a little bit different than what I usually do, so I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Check out some of my other videos like the ones that are on screen. Subscribe if you haven't, and let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments below. See you in the next one.